him. And so his first talk is going to be on developing organic controls for SWD in blueberries, year 5. So this is a nice long study for you all.
Okay, all right, that's fine. All right.
So if you want to use a laser pointer,
Yep, I got it.
And then just advance here.
Yep. All right, this is not really my session. This is an organic session. So I'm going to talk about controlling SWD in organic blueberries, and nowhere is SWD a bigger problem than in organic product. In organic blueberries, we've got a list of products a mile long for conventional blueberries, and so controlling SWD in conventional blueberries is not really a problem. It's more just an expense. But I want to put this in perspective and talk about the significance of organic blueberries in the state of Washington. By the end of 2016, you can see that it says more than 2,400 acres. That is probably an underestimate. That's just what I know about. I suspect the number is higher. Also, if you divide 2,400 into 50 million, you get a very good number. That is probably a gross underestimate of the numbers. That's just the numbers that I do have. In 2016, we produced more than 20 million pounds of organic blueberries. We produced more organic blueberries in Washington than the rest of the country combined. Now, if you look at Oregon and California, it comes close to equaling Washington. And after that, Oregon, Washington, California, I don't know if there's 1 or 2 million in the rest of the country combined. So what's worth organic blueberries is a West Coast deal. But when it comes to SWD, growers are largely reliant on a single product for control. That's Entrust. The Entrust label requires growers to alternate, and it requires, according to the label, alternating with another product that is effective. And historically, people said there's nothing else but Entrust that works. And so this has been a high priority for the Washington Blueberry Commission. This is some language on the Entrust 24C, and it says right here, do not make more than 2 consecutive applications of group 5 insecticide spinosad. That's Entrust. There's also spinetoram, which is not allowed in organic blueberries. And it says if additional treatments are required after 2 applications of Entrust, rotate to another class of effective insecticides for at least 1 application. So the question is, what are you going to use? So because we have a single product, we're concerned about about resistance, because we're over relying on Entrust. I think that you would find that some growers are probably just doing Entrust. We know that doing that in organic tree fruit has led to resistance in oblique banded leaf roller. I probably already said in California, where they've had SWD longer, they also have a longer growing season. They have developed essentially resistance to Entrust there. It's developed in 1 organic apple orchard in Washington. So when we look at the future of organic blueberries and SWD, most organic blueberries in Washington are Duke. Duke comes off early, and we have some fields of Duke in eastern Washington that they do not spray anything for, organic Dukes, because they come off before they can find SWD. But the Duke market, or the early season market, is saturated. And so people are planting what I call Draper and later varieties. And the later varieties you have, the more at risk you're going to be for SWD. SWD problems escalate through the season, and we are planting ourselves into an organic apocalypse, SWD apocalypse on these late organic varieties. I don't know if we cannot control SWD with just Entrust legally on late season blueberries. So I did some work at our site. Interestingly enough, we mostly have Duke at our place, and so we can't get an SWD infestation to do research on in our blueberries. So we're doing it in blackberries. And spotted-wing Drosophila love blackberries. We use an over-the-road sprayer. And I just want to show you some results from last year. So here's something that's quite interesting. This is different kinds of entrust treatments, different rates or timings. This is entrust with corn syrup. So here's one interesting thing. Put corn syrup with entrust, and it dramatically improves efficacy. But that was data that I shared last year, but I just want to, as a reminder, this is a trial from last year. These things all have in common. These are the organic insecticides we tried last year. This is conventional products. So a lot of the organic products we have are not very effective. One problem that we did have was we started with an infestation that was pretty heavy to start with, and you can't clean up an infestation organically. So for 26, we wanted to keep doing some work on that, try some different products, different rates, different timings. We need to start our application earlier. So in 2016, the same plot. All right. I don't know if you guys can see that. Richard, how well can you see that? Does it look blurry to you guys? So can you focus the projector? I will make this better. How about so what we have here, just so if we have a long list of treatments here, what we can do is just, so this is the treatments that we have. I'm just going to run through it real quick. Untreated, this was entrust at 6 ounces. This is Grandivo, 6 applications. Veritran, entrust rotated with Grandivo, entrust rotated with Veritran, entrust with Grandivo plus corn syrup, entrust plus Veritran plus corn syrup, Zera plus corn syrup, an experimental with corn syrup, 3 different rates of azadirachtin, an azadirachtin plus entrust, some experimental products, Delegate and Malathion, which are some conventional products. We have Grandivo, 6 applications, Grandivo, 4 applications rotated with 2 of entrust. We have 3 Grandivos with 2 entrust and 1 Venerate. We had a straight entrust program in Jet Ag. So what we have, can you make the screen bigger? All right. So what we have here, this is all the products. This is 13 days after the first application, 6 days after the second application. This is on July 20. It's ranked from most effective to the least effective. Now, the untreated check is right down here. The most effective product we had was entrust rotated with Veritran plus corn syrup at the same level. So these two are exactly the same. Entrust rotated with Grandivo plus corn syrup. This is entrust plus Grandivo without corn syrup. This is Delegate, a very effective conventional product. This is entrust with Veritran. So this is entrust with Veritran without corn syrup. This is adding corn syrup, what it does. This is Veritran alone. This is entrust alone. So Malathion is down here, what that's worth. This is 6 days after the 6th application. This would be 41 days after the first application, 6 days after the 6th application. Delegate has moved back up here. But if you want to get to the punchline, this is a total spotted-wing Drosophila over the course of the trial. The most effective product we had was entrust rotated with Grandivo plus corn syrup, entrust rotated with Veritran plus corn syrup. We had Delegate, entrust with Veritran without corn syrup, entrust plus Grandivo without corn syrup, Zera with corn syrup, and then here I put two different entrust treatments, but the entrust treatments were the same. Sometimes you wonder if you put the same product in 2 different times, how well they work. Because if one of these worked well and one of these didn't, that would be a measure of too much variability in your trial, and it makes you sometimes question results. So I put 2 identical treatments in, and they work identically. That's another good sign. The other good sign is the untreated check had the most in it. So those are 2 signs that the data are pretty good. It's probably a good trial. There's some other numbers, coefficient variance, least square means, and some other statistics that are not on here because there's already too many numbers on here. But this is a good solid trial with very heavy pressure. And what this tells us is this: Entrust rotated with Grandivo works. If you add corn syrup to Grandivo, it works better. That's the take-home message. So what we're going to be, I'll get into that. But this Entrust rotated Grandivo plus corn syrup is just as effective as a good conventional product. I'm going to also point out, you see this product Veritran. Show of hands, how many people have used Veritran? And I recommend you don't raise your hand. Okay, it is not labeled for blueberries. It is not labeled in the state of Washington for any use. Does anybody know what Veritran is? I thought somebody might. Veritran is Sabadilla. This is a relatively new product. It is owned by a company called MJK, which is McLaughlin, McCormick, and something. It just got bought by Valent, and they're considering actually expanding. It's registered on something like citrus, pistachio, and almond. It's registered on 3 crops, none of which are grown here. It's Florida and California. But we're hoping that they will get it registered. Now, interestingly enough, this is an organic product that is not without some tox issues. So that's an interesting product that looks like it has a fit here. I just want to point out this product down here, Jet Ag. So every year I put Jet Ag in here. That is peroxyacetic acid. It is equivalent to oxidate. The only reason I picked Jet Ag over oxidate is I personally know some Jet Ag people, and so, I just know them, so I put their product in. I'm not pushing it, but Jet Ag has never done great, but it always shows significant activity. It would never be a standalone product. It has no residual activity, but putting Jet Ag in, I think could help mix things up. I'm also interested in this Azera. Azera is, I'm drawing a blank on it. It is a package mix of, I think, a package mix of an azadirachtin product and a pyrethrin. I have found that azadirachtin plus pyrethrin in a taint mix situation has been effective in some other pests. I've never seen an actual package mix, so this is a package mix. It's kind of messy, but this shows you this is untreated check. This is Entrust plus Grandivo with corn syrup. It really had a lot of efficacy. So I'm gonna after doing this for a few years, here's some concluding thoughts. You cannot let SWD get established. There is no organic product or group of products or program that is effective enough to clean up an established SWD population. So you just can't let it get established. Rotating Entrust with Grandivo with corn syrup provide level control similar to Delegate and Malathion. Veritran with corn syrup gave you similar level of control. Okay, here we go. Avocado, citrus, and mango. So it's organically certified but not registered on any crop in Washington. Starting with Grandivo and then rotating with Entrust provide a similar level of control. So I had both of those in here, both the orders. I'm a fan of starting with Entrust. Entrust is kind of like the hammer. It's probably the more efficacious of the two. And so you want to start out with in trust if you can. Grandivo alone provided almost as good a level of control, but not as good. Jet Ag continues to show some moderate activity. So you need to start early. You want to use higher rates for this pest. Entrust is key. Rotated Grandivo, corn syrup. Corn syrup with Entrust last year. I showed you that early data slide. Corn syrup with Entrust would help. You can put Jet Ag in there, so you want to rotate, higher rates, tank mix, start early, short intervals. Our intervals were 7 days. I think that's it. All right, I hate this question. The question is, what was the rate of corn syrup? And it was 12.5%. Now, 12.5% is higher than it needs to be. Once we started doing this work, some other people did some work, lowered the rate, and found similar results. Next year, I hope to do some work and see how low we can go. 12.5% is higher than you need to. Also, some other people have duplicated this work using other kinds of sugar, and sucrose works as well. What's that? I can't answer that question. There is an interesting, somebody did some work in Washington. I can't remember who it is, but when they use sucrose, it repelled birds, I believe is the story. And they're telling us we should use sucrose and perhaps kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So it doesn't have to, okay, by the way, corn syrup is a mixture of sucrose and fructose, so it's not a big leap thinking that sucrose or just fructose would work. Any other questions, Mr. Middleton?
Yes, Alan, I've used that Grandivo, and I have not been impressed with it. Are you mixing that again with sugar, and what rate are you using on it?
That's we're using 3 pounds, and sugar makes it work better. And I would not be a fan of using Grandivo alone. I don't even know if that's labeled to use it sequentially that many times, but it's you need to rotate it, and I would add sugar. The other thing is you've got to start. When you start seeing blue, you got to start spraying. And it's a tricky deal because you've got limited number of applications of Entrust, and so it's a tricky deal.
Hi.
Yes.
What's the purpose of the corn syrup? As a deterrent or attractant?
Here's how this. So the female fly will come and she will put her mouth parts on the surface of the plant of the fruit to make sure that it's a suitable host. And when she is putting her mouth parts on the plant and she detects the sugar, they spend more time on it and they get a bigger dose as a result. They ingest more of the toxicant. So it's a feeding stimulant.
One more question. You mentioned that insect pressure has impact on how well these products work. So have you looked at reducing the insect pressure through by identifying any sort of predator that could lower the pressure before the season?
The short answer on that is no, I have not. The long answer on that is a very long answer, and I wish some WSU entomologists would be here. One of the problems that you have is SWD is, let's say you're in Whatcom or Skagit. That insect is everywhere, just everywhere. I mean, it's in the Himalayan blackberries, it's in the strawberries, it's in the raspberries, it's in the service berries, it's in the snowberries, it's in everything. And if you had something that took out, if you're lucky, to take out half of the population, you still would have like an infinite number out there. And one of the problems, at least, for example, where we're looking at organic blueberries, they're the fresh market. The tolerance is 1 infected berry in a pallet, and predators and parasites will never knock it down fast enough. So I'm not hopeful that biocontrol is going to work, but I wouldn't rule it out. But the short answer is I haven't looked at it. Is the short answer. Richard, do you have any comments? You're on this side and you're doing some organic blueberries. You have used some of these products. Do you have anything?
Faith and trust in Randivo. I've used sugar not this year, but the year before. I'll probably add it. I don't know how to measure the difference between the sugar and non-sugar. To me, in my mind, it's just going to be more effective. But I probably won't change my rotation. I go every 7 days with one. I don't like going any longer. 8, 9 days, I get scared. So
no, I think 7 days is the outside of it. I mean, if you could get by with 5 days, that would be better. The problem is if you're not careful, you're going to run out a number of applications that you can use. All right, I'm going to